Welcome to this Amazon seller video. My name is Richard, and in this video we'll talk about the inventory restrictions that Amazon put in place in August 2020, the new inventory indicators, the performance indicators that are now in Seller Central, and what other solutions we have outside of Amazon when it comes to distribution, so when it comes to logistics, so things like warehousing or third-party logistics services. By the way, if this is one of my first videos that you're watching, please don't forget to subscribe and enable bell notifications so that you don't miss out on any new content that I post. As you probably already know, as of August 2020, Amazon introduced a new policy where you are no longer able to send in unlimited amounts of inventory into FBA. So for any new ASIN created after August 1st, 2020, you can only send in 250 units for your first shipment. After that, Amazon will calculate your allowance, your inventory allowance for that particular product, and then you'll be able to send in only those amounts that are set in Amazon. So for example, what Amazon will normally do is during the first 2 weeks of your product's life, so after you send inventory to your FBA warehouse and your product starts to sell or appears on the Amazon website, Amazon will then calculate for the first couple of weeks how much inventory or how many sales your product generates, and therefore how much inventory you need to have in the Amazon warehouse sort of to have your product in stock for the next 90 days or so. In the long run, this is probably not too bad because it makes sure that you don't send in too much inventory and doesn't become stranded, it doesn't end up sitting in the FBA warehouse and costing you lots of money in warehouse storage fees. But it does make it really complicated at the beginning of your product's life. So for example, if you send in 250 units of your product to FBA, your product takes off and starts selling a lot, you then have very limited time to quickly get more inventory and send it to FBA. And again, you won't be able to send in unlimited inventory just because your product takes off. Amazon will calculate roughly how many units it thinks your product needs at that given time. And then you will only be able to send in that many units. So for example, let's say Amazon does a calculation and says, okay, your product is selling well, you now can send 400 units. Well, yes, you can send 400, but if there's still 100 units in FBA warehouse or 200 units in FBA warehouse, that means you'll only be able to send whatever the difference is. It also means that you'll have to be very quick at getting those units in because there's a lead time for your supplier, there's a lead time for your factory to generate the units or to produce the units. You then have to ship it from usually, wherever you're shipping it from. In most cases, it will come in from China. You then have to ship it in from there to your local destination. And then from the local destination, it gets shipped again to the Amazon warehouse. So this can all take quite a bit of time. And even when it gets to the Amazon warehouse, it still takes time to get processed. I've had cases where I've sent stock in and it sat there in FBA being processed for 14 days before it appeared in my inventory. And during this time, my product would go out of stock. So therefore, if Amazon could take up to 2 weeks to process your inbound shipment, then you really have to get it to the Amazon warehouse as quickly as possible so that you don't run out of stock. You're going to end up using express shipping methods through air, which can be very expensive. For example, one of the quickest ways to ship your stock from China to UK is probably using DHL Express. And that can deliver your stock from China to UK in sort of 3 to 4 days, which is pretty good. But then you're going to end up paying something like £8 or £9 per kilo, which is going to make your logistic costs really high and it's going to cut into your profit. So again, this is not ideal for anyone who's a new starter on Amazon FBA, or even if you are a seasoned seller, it's still pretty bad if most of your profit is cut away during the initial launch of your product. And these high logistic costs can make the difference between you making money on your product or you losing money on your product. If your logistic costs are too high, you might end up not making any profit because you won't be able to compete with the products that are already out there. And bearing this in mind, if your product does run out of stock during the initial launch, you're going to end up spending loads of money on PPC or advertisement to get your product back on top. As we all know, during the initial launch, there's always these 2 weeks of honeymoon period where Amazon treats your product slightly better to get it out there and ranks it slightly higher in the search results than it normally would do. And if during this time your product runs out of stock, it will disappear and it's going to take you a long time to get it back to the top. Whereas if you can continue keeping it at the top, then you've got much better chances of your product ranking higher and positioning higher in the search results. And if your product does run out of stock, as I said, you're gonna lose a lot of time and money trying to promote and get it back to the top. And Amazon is actually gonna mark you down because in-stock inventory is one of the indicators that it uses to measure your inventory performance index. So let's take a look at the new performance indicators that we have. We have excess inventory, sell-through rate, stranded inventory, and in-stock inventory. Those are the 4 new performance counters that we have for our inventory performance index. Your inventory performance index is measured out of 1,000. So if you think of it as each one of those indicators counting for a quarter of the 1,000 points that you've got, it basically takes an average of all those points to show you where your index is at the moment. If your index at any point dips below 500, Amazon will put restrictions in place on overall inventory that you can send in. As long as you're above 500, you can send in overall unrestricted amount of inventory. So this is counting all your products, not just like a single product that you're looking at or you're launching, or a single product that's underperforming, right? If your overall index dips below 500, Amazon will put restrictions in place and might even stop you from sending inventory to FBA altogether until you sort it out. So the indicators are pretty self-explanatory. We've got excess inventory, which is basically a marker that you get marked down on if you send in too much inventory. So for example, if Amazon says, okay, you can send a maximum of 400 units for this product and you send in 500, it's gonna mark you down heavily on your excess inventory counter. Whereas if you keep your inventory below the maximum levels that Amazon allows you to send in, you're gonna be good on that one. Your sell-through rate is probably one of the hardest ones to maintain because sell-through rate is basically an indicator based on how well your products are selling. And this is sometimes out of your control because you may send a product in and it may not take off, and then you'll get marked down on your sell-through. If the inventory sits in your Amazon FBA warehouse and doesn't shift, Amazon is going to mark you down on your sell-through rate. They are going to advise you that you create promotions, etc., to get rid of that inventory. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to do that. And if the inventory sits there and doesn't move, you're going to get marked down. So it might be worth overall to start thinking about creating removal orders for inventory that sits there too long, because you don't want a single product to hurt your entire inventory performance. As I said, this will then have an impact on the rest of your inventory. We then have stranded inventory, and this is really an indicator that should be in green at all times. The stranded inventory is inventory that you may have in Amazon for which you don't have an active offer for. So for example, if you create a listing and you send FBA inventory to it and you change it to fulfilled by merchant instead of fulfilled by Amazon, your FBA inventory is going to sit there and it's not going to appear as an offer. It's not going to sell, right? So it's going to sit there stranded. Or for example, if you send an inventory and you delete your listing, your inventory is going to sit there and it's going to appear as stranded. Okay, so that should really never be the case for you, but in case it is, that's what stranded inventory is. And lastly, it's this in-stock inventory. So this is the performance counter that will mark you down if you run out of stock for a product that it's selling really well. So Amazon really likes it if you keep your inventory consistent. They want to provide consistency to their customers. They want their Prime members to be able to find any product that they want and be able to order it on that day and have it delivered quickly. That's their promise to their Prime customers. So if you have a popular product that you're selling and you cannot make it available for their Prime customers, Amazon kind of gets upset, and therefore they will mark you down in your in-stock inventory. So basically it's them saying, look, if you're selling stuff through FBA, please make sure it's consistent and don't keep running out of stock. To figure out how much inventory you're allowed to have, you can go into the inventory performance dashboard, and inside there you can manage your inventory. So you can go to your inventory there and you can have a look at individual products and see how much inventory you've been allocated, how much inventory you currently have at Amazon, and how much inventory you are allowed to send in. And really you need to look at these stats every time you ship new inventory to Amazon. Now every time you want to ship some inventory to your FBA warehouse, you now need to go here and see, okay, well, how many products I'm actually allowed to send. My factory, for example, makes me order a minimum of 1,000 units, but Amazon now only lets me send 300 or 200 at this time. So you're now gonna have to find somewhere to store your excess units, or you're gonna have to pay your supplier more money to produce less. Again, this is an extra cost which is obviously bad for us as sellers because it makes it harder for us to manage our suppliers, manage our stock, manage our costs. It's a lot of different factors that come into play for us as sellers. But nevertheless, if you go to your inventory performance dashboard, you'll be able to see all of these stats for each one of your products, and you'll see how what the allocated inventory is for your product. The way that Amazon calculates it, they normally calculate it so that they can enable you to have enough stock in FBA warehouse for the next 90 days. Amazon is not looking to put you out of stock. They just want to make sure that you don't send too many units in at one time and it ends up sitting there in their warehouse and wasting space. But this can cause all sorts of other problems as well. Let's say, for example, we have Amazon Prime Day coming up and your product might sell a lot more because you'll be promoting it and people in general are shopping more. What if it's Christmas sales or Boxing Day sales or Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Easter? All these events are coming up. Or for example, even if your product is seasonal, right? All of these factors come into play, but they're not really accounted for. We will also have this problem during the Chinese New Year where all the factories are shut down. And what we normally as sellers do, we will order more stock in January to last us up until sort of April time so that we don't run out of stock and so that we don't have to spend a lot of money on express shipping. But if Amazon restrict us and don't let us send more stock into our FBA warehouse at that time, we really need to look for alternative solutions. And this is where warehousing and third-party logistics solutions come in. Warehousing and third-party logistics services, 3PL, have really come a long way in the past couple of years. There are a lot of options out there, especially as Amazon releases more and more, new restrictions on inventory, and Amazon inventory storage costs go up and FBA costs go up. As all these things happen, these kind of 3PL companies, these third-party logistics companies, they are looking for more business and more opportunities to do stuff. So they are becoming more and more capable working with Amazon sellers. So for example, a lot of these companies will have software or API that hooks into Amazon Seller Central so that they can manage your orders on your behalf, very much like FBA would do, right? So they will just plug into your Seller Central and they'll be able to dispatch orders on your behalf. So in that case, all you'd have to do is send your stock to a third-party logistics service. They will label it for you, they will barcode it for you, and they will monitor your Amazon order queue, and when orders come in, they will package and dispatch your orders. Just like FBA, but the costs will be lower. Also, their storage costs in general are lower than Amazon's FBA, especially during Christmas periods, and there are no restrictions on the amount of stock you can send. A lot of Amazon sellers are individuals running their own business and don't have free time as it is to do all of these things. So if you have to manage another thing on top of everything else you already are juggling all at the same time, it just cuts into your free time and takes away, again, some of your profit in terms of time. The other concern here with using third-party logistics is that your product will no longer be a prime product. It will no longer be an FBA product. And what we've seen statistically on Amazon is that if you're not an FBA, if you're not a prime product, your seller rank, so your BSR will drop and your position in the search results will drop because Amazon customers prefer prime products because they like the idea of having it delivered reliably. So if you change your product over to FBA fulfilled by merchants, expect to have a big impact on your BSR. And in some marketplaces where it's highly competitive and everyone is shipping by FBA, this might put you out of business. We do, however, have a seller fulfilled prime where this might be an option for you. If you can opt into the seller fulfilled prime and you can use a third-party logistics company, it might work out for the better. In case you are looking for third-party logistics companies, there are a ton of them on the internet. All you have to do is go off and Google third-party logistics company Amazon, and you're gonna get back a load of solutions, a load of companies within the UK that are able to provide you with this service. Most of them will give you custom price, so you do have to call them up to find out what they charge. And I guess the charges will vary from time to time. But the good thing is you can always negotiate with them, just like you negotiate with your suppliers and just like you negotiate with anyone else. That is pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you found the content useful. If you have any questions, please let me know through the comments. By the way, if you've not subscribed yet, please don't forget to click on the subscribe button, enable bell notifications, and of course, like this video. I will see you guys next time. Bye for now.